Graham Corns has been a fixture in South Australian football for the best part of 50 years. As a player, coach, media personality and flag bearer for his state since 1967. Welcome, Graham.
Thanks, Mike.
Now, as strong as you are, as fierce as you are in terms of patriotism towards South Australia, you're actually a Victorian, aren't you?
Born in Victoria. My first memory is watching my dad play footy at Lawn, strange enough, on the foreshore down there. I've been back there a few times, and no, I can't find anybody who can remember the oval at Lawn being on the foreshore, but I know I saw my dad playing footy on there for Lawn, or back in 1952, I reckon.
Why are you so vehemently opposed to all things Victorian?
Well, no, you have that all wrong, because
do I?
We have a great deal of respect for... There's nothing like...
You disguise it well.
Look, let me explain. There's nothing like the Victorian football culture. You really should be able to experience it when you don't live there, but... The issue we have as South Australians with Victorian attitude to football is that they don't rate anyone else. They don't regard it. It's a lack of respect and appreciation. And there's been some great footballers out of South Australia who are just unknown here in Victoria.
We don't deny that. In fact, we pinched all of them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you come and you rape and pillage and take all our footballers away. Give us even claim Malcolm Blight as a Victorian. Malcolm Blight played for Victoria. We never forgave him.
Yeah, I understand that.
But I think it's just the perceived lack of respect in South Australia that the Victorians have or don't have for South Australians. And we're always trying to prove ourselves. It is an inferiority complex.
It is.
But that's not a bad thing necessarily, because an inferiority complex can be a great driving force.
Given that backdrop, Graham, is that one of the reasons why you never came to the VFL until you were 31?
No, I was always tempted to. I signed a Form 4 with Geelong at Puckapunyal, and that was in 1968.
You were conscripted, weren't you? And
Got called up halfway through 1968, went in the army in October 68, and the first weekend we could have visitors, Nipper Trezise from Geelong Footy Club showed up with the Form 4 and asked me to sign it. So,
any intention of coming, or did you do what so many of the non-Victorians did then and take the money and said, I've got no intention?
Well, given the fact that my family was living in Geelong, I probably had intentions to do it. But by the time I got out of the army and I went back to Glenelg, I'd been in Vietnam and came home to the Glenelg Footy Club, and without a doubt the Glenelg Footy Club gave me that support. I don't know where I would have been having stepped off a plane from Vietnam without having to be able to play football and go back into the environment of a footy club. So I did feel indebted. But at the same time, I was always grateful to Geelong, because they actually sent me a couple of brand new Sheahans who were in Vietnam.
Over in Vietnam?
We didn't get a lot of time to use them.
Now, you'll never sway me on your resentment towards Victoria, but I want to take you back to the start.
It's not resentment.
You were born in Victoria?
Yeah.
And I understand you went to Ivanhoe Grammar for a time.
Oh, look, that's a long story, but I went to Edithvale Primary School. We lived at Aspendale. I went to Edithvale Primary School, and my mother and father had a really acrimonious divorce. And for some reason, my little brother, who's 4 years younger, and I were in custody of my father. Now, he didn't know how to look after, so he took a second job and put me as a boarder at Ivanhoe Grammar School. I was 7 years of age, and he was working 2 jobs to pay the fees. But then my mother came in one night at midnight into the dormitory and kidnapped me. Took me literally kidnapped me out of the dormitory. So I don't know what happened the next morning when they found out I was gone. And then we were on the run, my mother and I, all over Victoria, trying to get away from my father and the authorities, I guess, who were trying to find us. But to cut a long story short, my mum was a single mother. She couldn't support us, so I went back to my grandmother first, and for a short time in a home out at Heidelberg, where my little brother...
Like an orphanage home?
We were only there briefly. Dad rocked up one day in the Studebaker, and we piled in the car, and he drove to Adelaide and settled in Adelaide.
79.
Yeah.
Now, you're a giant in South Australian football. You finally come to Melbourne at 31 years of age, and you join North Melbourne.
Yeah.
You play rounds 1 and 2 in a forward pocket, which I suspect was against your better judgment. You end up playing 5 games that year and then heading back to Adelaide, presumably with the tail between your legs.
I didn't go back with my tail between my legs, and I was only there 6 months, but it was one of the greatest 6 months I've ever had. The guys at North Melbourne were fantastic. The club was great. I don't think there's been a better collection of football talent in terms of Brownlow medals and Magarey medals, Sandover medals, best and fairest club captains. My biggest problem was, and I always blame myself, is I didn't get there till February. I had an overseas trip planned and didn't get back till February, so I missed a lot of the pre-season. So if you didn't perform, there was always someone else to take your place.
Well, but you would have. I mean, you're a proud man, and you're entitled to be on your record in South Australia. That must have wounded you to come here and play 5 games only at AFL level, some seconds games, and then you go home. Mid-season.
I always blamed myself for it, so I didn't feel bitter towards anyone. As I said, I've still got great memories of those time, and I love catching up with those guys. My pride was dented, and it was a blow to the ego. Instead of you go from being this big-headed lair to somebody who realises.
You and I have been talking to the same people. I checked your record. Your second last game was against Melbourne. You had 21 disposals and kicked 3 goals. It seems odd that you'd play one more game only, and then both parties were happy to part company.
I guess once you're here, we've grown up with the mystery and the magic of Victorian footy, because all we ever got was the telecast, the winners on Sunday night, and these guys are legends. But when you actually are here and you meet the legends, and you are coached by the legend himself, Ron Barassi, well, the aura diminishes a little bit. Some of the magic dissipates, and having had a taste of it, probably, it wasn't as magical as perhaps we thought it was, and there was a certain amount of comfort at home and familiarity about going home, and so we made the decision to go back, which I never regretted.
Cornsey, you were lightly built, you still are. I've been trying to think of players that we've seen in the AFL of recent times who remind me of you. Brett Burton comes to mind.
Well, certainly he came from Whyalla too. Central Whyalla, the team I played for from where I was recruited. I guess he's the most similar. He had a bigger engine than I. He could run all day. Fantastic aerobic athlete.
What's the worst thing that happened to you?
David Grangin hit me.
I get scared when I hear his name. Isn't his nickname Grave Danger?
Grave Danger. He played a few games for St Kilda. He from Bacchus Marsh. He's a really good footballer, but he had a fearsome reputation in Adelaide, and we played a preliminary final in 1982. And he came off the bench, and Glenelg were winning by about 4 or 5 goals, and he just ran amok. And he's given me the big left hook when I wasn't looking. But luckily hit me across the mouth, not the chin, so didn't actually do as much damage as it could have.
You represented South Australia 21 times. I suspect they're amongst your proudest moments, those were putting that South Australian sweater on.
The pride of holding the jumper first. I can't describe that. To actually pull it on and stand there, it's like a dream come true. My first state game was 1971 at the MCG, 66,000 people. Curls was the coach, and he engendered this hatred of Victorians.
Is that where it comes from?
It is. Hatred of umpires. All Victorian umpires cheated. All Victorians would cheat if they got the chance. But the thrill of actually pulling I never ever got over the thrill of pulling on the red jump. But never played in a winning game against Victoria, which was...
That would have eaten... It probably still eats away at you, does it?
Got some sort of satisfaction as a coach.
Yes, you did. You did. Outstanding record at State of Origin level with South Australia. I think 9 wins from 11 starts. Yeah. What do you reckon that was? You had the home ground advantage most times, didn't you, at Footy Park?
1993, MCG. You forgot that one.
Yeah, conveniently.
It was all to do with this inferiority complex, because when we played Victoria, we tried to be something we weren't. We thought we had to be these fierce, aggressive warriors, when Victorians were generally stronger and better natural footballers. But we had a few things going for us as South Australians. We had better developed skills. We could move the ball quickly, and we probably played with better team patterns. So it was a matter of exploiting the strengths we had, and not trying to think we had to go fight them, unless you had someone standing Dermot Brereton.
Yeah, or Curls was playing with you.
Or Curls was playing, but Curls loved to fight.
He did.
But he was a much better footballer than people thought he was.
Curly never came to the VFL. Barry Robin didn't come. A lot of you came late.
Peter Carey didn't come.
Who was the best South Australian that we either didn't see at all or didn't see enough of?
Neil Curley was a great player. And at that era, had he come, he was Barassi and Whitten. He rucked as well as playing all his other key positions.
Barassi and Whitten combined. Now, I love curls.
Yeah.
But you're saying
Barassi
and Whitten combined.
He wasn't as spectacular as Ted, because Ted was really good in the air. But Barassi,
he was more like Brass, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he's more skillful than Brass. Neil Curley was a much more skillful player than people give him credit for. Not as spectacular as maybe Ted Whitten, but a very good player. Barry Robran is a player you absolutely had to have seen. And people don't believe me, but he was as good a player as you've ever had.
It's like if you grow up in South Australia, one of the first things you learn after the alphabet is that Barry Robran's the best player that ever played.
Well, he was.
After the break, your coaching career. Your coaching career. Premierships at Glenelg, 85, 86. On the way to Adelaide.
Yeah.
An inaugural coach of the Adelaide Crows. It was an amazing time, wasn't it? Could have been so much different, couldn't it? Now, this is an old wound, Cornsey, but preliminary final day in your third year.
Yeah.
Crows are playing Essendon.
Thank you for this.
You're 42 points up at half-time, and you lose to the team that goes on and wins the flag. How many times have you played that game over in your mind?
I talked about regrets before, about being a wasted emotion. I don't have any. The only regret I do have is I want that half-time back. I do, because we hadn't been given a heck of a lot of respect as a new team. Our first 3 years had been really good. I think we've probably won more games than any of the new franchise, and we're always competitive. And our form in that first half was as good as it's ever been, but half-time.
Well, you said you wanted half-time back. You mean personally about what you may have done differently?
Well, I think because in those days it was always about, well, it still is about psychology, and it was, we're 7 goals up. Let's keep doing the things we've been doing to get us there. Let's run and use the ball and I've spoken to Sheed since, and I said, what did you say at half-time? He said it was quite simple. We had guys who weren't playing in that game who wanted to play in the grand final, who were revving the guys up. And the only message I had was that if you kick the first 2 goals, you've got the rest of the game to kick 5 goals.
Yep.
And so I kept an attacking instinct, an attacking midfield rather than go defensive.
Could you have gone defensive with half a game still to play?
I could have been a bit more aware of Michael Long. Sean Denham was on Tony McGuinness and turned his defensive role into an offensive role. The umpires...
The umpires.
You go back and look at it. Go back and look at the umpiring stats.
Sorry, I thought they were the same umpires that were there in the first half when you led by 7 goals.
We put it beyond doubt there, but then don't ask me about it. But in the end, we didn't do it well enough. We didn't protect the lead, and we probably could have. But it happens for a reason, because there's no doubt those guys involved in 93 were definitely there in 97 and 98 and had learnt that lesson the hard way.
You only lasted 1 more year after that.
Yeah.
Were you disappointed about that? Hurt by that?
I'm not sure hurt. I was disappointed. I was angry. I was angry that a board couldn't stay the distance. There was this feeling that because we didn't have a Victorian coach, we didn't have the earthy qualities that Victorian footballers, they'd get down.
That would have got up your nose, wouldn't it?
And there was a couple of board members there that I just probably never really forgave.
Do you talk to them now?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Time heals everything.
You were sacked after 1994, your 4th year.
Yeah. We didn't do that badly. Well, I've won 9.5 games. I mean, coaches today get pats on the back for doing that.
It was a big decision. I mean, and you were replaced by a Victorian, Robert Shaw. Yeah. Retrospectively, did they make the wrong decision?
At the time, yes, but when you saw how it unfolded, when Blighty came back, and Blighty, they won 2 flags, they won consecutive flags. So everything fell into place.
You coached Modra in his best year in the AFL, kicked 120-something goals, including 6 in that losing preliminary final. Tell us how good he was. We saw him on telly and occasionally here, but where does he rate amongst the blokes, the greats that you coached and have seen over there?
He's definitely up there, because because of his natural football ability. He came to football late he wasn't that serious about it. He was a country footballer, came down to West Adelaide. All of a sudden he's playing for the Crows. And then for that brief time, I got criticised a lot for saying he was bigger than Bradman in Adelaide.
Did you say that? I'd forgotten that.
No, I nearly said it.
Well,
but I said enough.
Do you remember exactly what you said?
I said to the was a press conference after a game. I said I talked about Modra, and he kicked 100 goals, I think, at Princes Park. And I started to say, I said, oh look, I almost said he's bigger than Bradman in Adelaide, so I wouldn't be that disrespectful to Sir Donald. But he really was there for a while, bigger than Bradman. Bigger. For that period of time.
I want to take you back to Glenelg. Coaching is a complicated and demanding business. Even if you haven't coached, you understand that. Mm-hmm. There was a rare and bizarre complication for you at Glenelg. You're coaching your footy team in the finals. Mm. One of your players you find is having a relationship with your wife of the time. Mm-hmm. How did you handle that?
It was really hard. There was no doubt about that. Because you don't expect that to happen. And then you're having to deal with it after week one of the finals. And so much riding on Glenelg. Glenelg had played in so many grand finals, hadn't won one, and I'd come back. We'd won the second semi. Also, no, we were about to play the second semi. But in a sense, it forced you to compartmentalise it. It forced you to isolate your personal problems and concentrate on the football issues. And in a sense, football might have been a little bit of an escape for both of us, I guess. It wasn't easy for...
When did it come to your attention?
The Monday night after the first final we played.
And are we going to say who we're talking about here?
You can if you like.
We're talking about Tony McGuinness.
Yeah.
Now, did you seek him out?
Yeah. Oh well, obviously you've got to try and you have to deal with it. You can't hide from the issue, and you confront it and you deal with it, and then from a football perspective, we've got a premiership to win. Mm. I mean, let's.
How do you think the women of the world listening to you now would relate to that? You're sort of saying the football takes precedence over the marital situation.
No, it didn't take precedence because it was a horrible time. But you've got relationship. It's not relationship. You've got responsibilities. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's lessons to be learnt from everywhere, but let's focus on the football side of it. I mean, you don't want to go down the personal side because it was so difficult to deal with. But from a football perspective, you had training to go to, you had teams to select, you had a game to play. And we were able to isolate that, and we won the flag, which wasn't any period of great satisfaction or enjoyment. It was just more relief than anything.
Did you put your arms around him on the ground after the game?
I think I did, yeah.
You did you?
I think I did, yeah.
It's a very mature attitude, Graham.
Oh, there wasn't always mature attitudes with it, but at that time it was more relief, and it was a thing probably you had to do. And bear in mind, Tony came back as a...
he played under you at Adelaide?
He came back at Adelaide as our... and we've always been able to have a professional relationship in that regard. So, and he was very close to Chad and Kane so that's complicated to talk about. It's one of life lessons that is really learned the hard way. But 20 years later, 25, 30 years later, you have a new life and got a beautiful wife and three more kids. I mean, who would have thought I'd have 3 more daughters?
No, just one more and then I'll leave it alone. Do you remember what you said to Tony McGuinness when you first confronted him after learning the news?
Oh, I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Do you want to share it?
No. Do you know?
No, I don't know. No?
No, it wouldn't be appropriate.
Okay, right. Okay. Cornsey, what about your extracurricular activities? Cornsey's All-Star Band. Now, are you available for gigs on the international stage, or do you confine it to Adelaide?
No, we've done some big gigs. We played at the Clipsal 500. Look, it was a band that started at the radio station for a Christmas party, and there was a guy who owned a hotel there, thought we were fantastic. We couldn't have been, but he thought we were. and he booked us to do a gig at his hotel, and from there we kept getting jobs.
I know there was a big event for one of the boys, either Chad or Kane, that you missed because you had the band had an engagement.
I've missed lots of things with the band because the bands get bookings months out, and there was a pre-season final I missed Kane's 250th game. I missed it when he broke the record. He thinks Chad's the favourite son because I keep missing all of his events. But
does that make you feel more guilty?
It does. I hope they understand that sometimes. I promised him I'd be there for his 300th game.
Gee, they've given you some moments, Cornsey. I mean, they have just become the fourth longest-serving pair of brothers in AFL history.
I know. It's been amazing. And I think they both got drafted by Port Adelaide. If you knew the history between Glenorg and Port Adelaide...
I do. I was going to ask you about
mortal enemies.
Yeah.
They drafted Chad first.
Were you sort of offended, not the word, were you upset that Port took them?
No.
You were?
Look, only parents of footballers will understand that when you get to that stage before the draft, it's so stressful. Are they going to get drafted? Where are they going to get drafted? And to actually get drafted, then to be able to stay in Adelaide, and then finally to be able to play together, that was a real bonus. And I mean, there's times in Port Adelaide people have given us a lot of grief and vice versa. But for them, it's all about the boys, and they've had great careers there, and Kane continues to have
the memories of that one, mate. Now, that must have been a magnificent thrill for you. There's two boys on the packed MCG holding the Premiership Cup aloft, and they're yours. That
was probably my greatest football day. It was just somebody once said footballers should be orphans because of how parents can be, but that was a great day. And their little sister was there, or two little sisters were there, but only one of them was old enough to appreciate, so it was a great day.
Were you able to take the arms out, wrap them around people wearing Port Adelaide?
I was in the rooms afterwards. I've got a photo about half an hour later in the rooms.
You and Choco, maybe?
Well, Choco got on really well with Choco. He and I was sort of not unlike in a sense, except he was a mad Port Adelaide person. But I got on very well with him, and he nurtured the boys and gave them great careers. So, as did John Cale initially.
One of my abiding memories of Chad is his attitude towards the showdowns.
Yeah.
What is it? Why he
hated the Crows.
Manic. He hated the Crows.
He hated the Crows. Yeah. He hated the Crows, and he just wanted to play well. And because they'd give him such flack, and it's embarrassing for me because I'm a patron of the Crows, like I'm an ambassador and a life member of the Crows. So you're trying to explain why your boy is so much at war, but it was just a passionate, emotional thing for him. He drew the line in the sand and away he went.
Who did you barrack for in the showdowns?
This is an impossible question to answer. If
the Crows and two boys?
I could never barrack for Port Adelaide, but I've got two sons playing in that jumper. You want them to play well, you want the team they're playing for to win. So deep down inside you're hoping their team win, but you can't barrack for Port Adelaide. It's a ridiculous...
Yeah, it would have been an amazing feeling, I reckon, sitting in that place, knowing your allegiance to one side and the bloodlines with the other. Yeah.
It all runs. You live it all through your football, through your sons when it gets to this stage. So what's good for them is good for you.
Do you reckon Kane has had a bad press over his career? Do you think he's got the credit that he deserves, or he's had the respect even within the footy club that he deserves?
I think this year it's regained its equilibrium. If you look at Kane's record, it's
outstanding.
You shake your head. But I think it's because he's a run-with player. He's not quite as flamboyant as Chad, but he got the job done. But he copped a bit of flack there for a while from some Port supporters even. But
from the Port coach at the time. Did Matty Primus rate him?
Matty Primus wanted him to retire. He still had a year of his contract to go. Wanted him to retire, but he said, "No, I'm not going to." And then fortunately Keith Thomas came to the club as chief executive and said, "Well, this is not the way you treat you know."
Three-time club champion.
And got him back on track. And then, of course, with the new coach, he just hasn't looked back. Well, he won the best and fairest the following year when Matty Primus was still coach. And then I think Ken Hinckley's given him another lease of life, given him a new direction, made him focus on a few more things he may not have, and been a bit more demanding of him, so it's been good.
Now, I like Matty Primus, so let me preface it by saying, but the Corns family and Matty Primus, that link that they had early on, that was broken, wasn't it?
Matty and Chad were great mates, and that often is affected when one player becomes a coach. But I'm not sure it was Matty Primus's fault entirely. I think he had direction from, presidents and boards and chief executives, which might impact.
Should they get involved in that sort of stuff?
Well, they did.
Your post-footy career took you into the media, newspaper column and radio spots on 5AA.
Yeah.
20-odd years on AA?
23.
23 years.
Yeah.
Breakfast and then Drive with KG Cunningham.
Yeah, legend.
Lots of highlights because you interview lots of famous people.
Oh, I don't know. Don't do this.
Anyone outside of footy that you got in front of?
Greg Norman.
Greg Norman is B1, yeah?
Yeah.
I tell you, there's a bloke...
Will Smith, I got an interview with Will Smith, who did the Muhammad Ali film.
Well, didn't South Australia have the cycling tour that used to bring Lance Armstrong?
Yeah, I knew this would come. Lance Armstrong.
Yeah? Did you interview him?
I did interview. I did.
I never ever heard it.
No.
What?
For
I know
3 years.
You had 15 minutes with him.
For 3 years, Lance Armstrong came to Adelaide, and every year we'd say, can we interview him? Can we organise an interview? And finally, the last day he's there, I had a phone call from a special events committee, said you can have 10 minutes with Lance Armstrong at 12:15. This time it's 10:10 in the morning. So I frantically raced around, interviewed him at the Hilton Hotel, sitting there in a room. He wheels his bike in and his lycra and his cleats, sat down, and we had I wouldn't say it was a great interview because he was pretty bland with his responses.
Told, he said, I'm going to break my silence here. I'm going to expose to the world that I'm a systemic drug cheat.
You were told that.
No. So what happened to the interview?
Oh, so I've got back to the radio station, to the newsroom. There's only one intern on the news because it's a Sunday, and I'm trying to put into the computer because one of these stupid microphone things with a USB stick in the bottom. Yeah. So I'm trying to find the interview, and I've got the sound of me learning how to do it, interviewing the girls in the media centre beforehand.
Blank.
I didn't press the record button.
Blank.
I missed the Lance Armstrong interview.
And 5AA had promoted it?
We'd promoted it. The only interview with Lance Armstrong.
How did you get out of that? What did you say when you went on air?
I just said, I made out I had the interview, pressed the button, and there was silence. And then all hell broke loose. I said, I'm sorry. I think I blamed somebody else in the good Australian tradition. Blame somebody else.
The techo. Say techo. No one knows who the techo is. Yeah. No, it's been great. We haven't had as many South Australians as we should have. We're extremely happy to get you first up this year. Massive career on lots of fronts. We've enjoyed it, and I know you have, and good luck for the future.
Thanks, Mike.
This has been a Fox Footy production for Fox Sports.